Welcome to Breathing Word Online. Enjoy.
On April 25, 2014, the city of Flint, Michigan decided to discontinue using water from the city of Detroit and instead switched to the Flint River for its drinking water supply. But in early 2015, the entire world came to realize that we were in the throes of a man-made, government-sanctioned, non-wartime, and preventable catastrophe and pandemic called surface water contamination. So what is surface water? Surface water is all around us. It's the water that we see. It's the water that sits on the surface of our planet. Oceans, lakes, rivers, streams, even glaciers. Virtually every living thing on our planet depends on clean surface water to survive. Water is mentioned almost 700 times throughout the Bible. In fact, in the beginning of creation, in Genesis 1 and 2, water is the first consumable thing that God creates. And it was good until we got to chapter 3, where sin was introduced. And because of sin, man has been destroying himself and earth ever since. Did you know that 5 of the 7 days of creation consisted of God doing something with water? 71% of our planet is water covered. But did you know that only 2.5% of that water is drinkable, with 1% of that locked in glaciers? This means that only 0.007% of Earth's water is available to drink. This means that the 7.5 billion people, along with the millions of land-living animal species, all have to share this small sum of water. This is a terrifying thought when you think of cities like Flint, Michigan. In theory, the Flint River should have been clean enough for them to be able to pull as much water from it as they wished. After all of the rivers around the world should be clean enough for us all to drink freely from, right? Testing of the Flint River found chlorides, fecal coliform bacteria or E. coli, phenol, arsenic, mercury, toxic solvents, VOCs, PNAs, petroleum compounds, ammonia, xylene, which is dimethylbenzene, methylene chloride, toluene, phosphates from fertilizers, and detergents from GM and tons of other sources. But Flint isn't the only city to experience problems with its drinking water. 1980, Lake Peniel in Louisiana was an 1,125 square foot lake until a Texaco drill punctured a hole into the salt mine beneath the lake, draining it almost completely and turning the remaining fresh water into salt water. The suction was so strong that it caused the Delcambre Canal and the Gulf of Mexico to flow backwards for the first time in history. 1990, Lake Karachay in Russia was found to be so polluted that just standing on its shores for an hour would give you a dose of over 600 Roentgen of radiation. In 2000, a tailing dam on a gold mine in Romania ruptured, releasing cyanide into the Tisza and Danube rivers, killing 80% of their aquatic life. In 2005, a factory explosion in China released benzene into the Songhua River, which also contaminated rivers in Russia. In 2008, also in China, the Yangtze River was discovered to be contaminated with schistosomiasis, or snail fever. Also in 2008, a tailing dam in Tennessee ruptured, releasing 6.8 billion gallons of coal fly ash flurry into the Emery River. In 2010, in Oshka, Hungary, a dam collapsed, spilling over 697 million liters of arsenic, mercury, and alumina into the Markal and Danube rivers. Also in 2010, the Mayak nuclear complex in Russia admitted to dumping 2.68 billion cubic feet of highly radioactive waste into the Techa River between 1949 and 1956. In 2011, the city of Atlanta, Georgia, reported that chromium-6 was found in its drinking water at a rate of 31 times higher than what's considered safe. Chromium-6 is the chemical that was the subject of the 1996 Aaron Brockovich trials. In 2014, 400,000 people in Toledo, Ohio, were without clean drinking water due to massive algae blooms caused by chemicals in Lake Erie. In 2015, the EPA caused a 1 million gallon spill of zinc, iron, copper, and other heavy metals into the Animas River in Colorado, contaminating the attached water systems. In September 2016, a pipe leak at a nickel factory spilled undisclosed contaminants into the Daldekan River in Siberia, turning the river red. Just 2 weeks later, Cleveland.com reported the presence of high levels of chromium-6 in 29 out of 30 water systems in Northeast Ohio, with Cleveland's water having the 15th highest concentration in the country, and Columbus holding at 9th. And already this year, it was reported that 71% of Long Island, New York's water suppliers detected undisclosed levels of 1,4-dioxin in their water supplies. And like in the city of Flint, who didn't declare an emergency until 18 months after the problem surfaced, many of these governments insisted that the water was still safe to drink. Like on August 21, 2015, while Flint was under a state of emergency, the Ohio EPA became aware that lead was leaking into the Sebring water system, but failed to take any action until December. Even still, between them and the city, they allowed people to continue to drink the water until January of last year, knowing that lead ingested even at low levels over time will build up and become toxic. Did you know that the disobedience and greed of Egypt's government led to the pollution of their water? This created a health emergency and initiated the collapse of their economy and political power. Surface water contamination is not the only problem that we face. We also face dangers from surface water dry-up, as well as surface water piracy. Lake Mead in Nevada was the largest freshwater reservoir in the United States, feeding over 30 million people in Nevada, California, Arizona, and parts of Mexico. Between 1990 and 2010, the lake dropped to only 40% of its normal levels. That's a loss of 14.6 million acre-feet. In August of 2016, measurements at the second largest reservoir in the U.S., Lake Powell in Colorado, showed levels at only 36% full. In a 5-month period, the water levels dropped 15 feet. The Aral Sea in Russia, between 2000 and 2016, has all but disappeared.
All right, happening now, Iraqis fleeing 3 towns on the banks of the Euphrates River. There are new concerns that the river's water level is so low that ISIS fighters can just walk across and launch attacks.
That's after ISIS militants, they shut off the gates of the Ramadi Dam. This new strategy presenting a major security and humanitarian threat.
The Euphrates River, between 2003 and 2009, has lost over 117 million acre-feet of its water. This amount is the equivalent of the total volume of the Dead Sea. Did you know that the drying of the Euphrates is a sign of an imminent world war? As if contamination and man-made droughts aren't bad enough, French companies like Suez and Veolia now control, through privatization, over 1,500 of America's municipal water systems. This means that millions of American citizens now have to buy drinking water right here in the United States from foreign companies. Did you know that in the beginning of creation, the earth was covered top to bottom with water? It was the creation of sky and land that created the aquifers. Groundwater is the water that sits beneath the ground. The reservoir in which it sits is called an aquifer. And you would think that water beneath the ground would be free of contamination and piracy, right? Wrong. The Great Lakes represents 20% of the world's fresh water. Yet in 2001, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, yes, Michigan again, issued permits to the Swiss company Nestle to pump out 400 gallons of fresh water per minute from aquifers that feed Lake Michigan and ship it all over the world. All this while Flint residents reportedly paid the highest water bills nationwide at about $860, all while the water was undrinkable. Other water pirates are not as well known. In fact, banks have been buying up water rights for over 10 years. This is because water will soon become the new currency. Somewhere around the early 2000s, the state of Texas gave billionaire T. Boone Pickens the rights to pump water from the Ogallala Aquifer, the largest aquifer in the United States, giving him access to an estimated 211,000 acre-feet of fresh water from beneath his property. The problem with this was his water rights reportedly gave him the ability to pump and sell water from other states as far north as South Dakota for free.
I know what people say that, well, water's a lot like air. Do you charge for air? Of course not. You shouldn't charge for water. Well, okay, watch what happens. You won't have any water.
Proverbs 15:27 says, "He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house." Meet Gary Harrington of Oregon. In 2012, Gary was sent to jail for 30 days and fined $1,500 for collecting rainwater on his own property. In fact, in multiple states, it is illegal for you to collect your own rainwater, even on your own property. You, as a taxpayer and a U.S. citizen, can be charged and jailed for doing just that. But since 2008, this same government has reportedly shipped our clean water to the tune of over 100 billion gallons per year to China. Isaiah 56:10 through 12 says, "His watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, laying down, loving to slumber. Yeah, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, every one for his own gain from his quarter. Come ye, they say, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink. And tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant." The ODNI said in 2012 that water will become a governmental destabilizing factor. They further state that ordinary citizens will have to resort to the kinds of purification tablets currently used by soldiers and hikers to obtain clean water. But as Christians, we already knew that the day would come when the water would not be drinkable. And it will get worse. Did you know that the book of Revelation contains 5 literal prophecies about the contamination of Earth's water? If you think you're dealing with lead or chemicals like chromium-6 in your water, have it tested immediately. Don't try to boil it, because lead in particular is not a gas and won't boil out. It is a metal, and boiling may increase the lead's concentration. Boiling typically only works to kill bacteria. Short of professional abatement, multiple sources say that water treatment methods like reverse osmosis, distillation, and or superior carbon filters designed for lead or chemical removal may be beneficial. Columbia University's Earth Institute adds that bottled water is not a solution and may be repackaged tap water. For more recommendations, visit the CDC, the EPA, or your local health department's websites. For information on testing, visit the National Drinking Water Database, contact the EPA, or your local Board of Health. We also encourage you to contact your government officials to demand clean drinking water. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Breathing Word Online. Thank you for joining us. See you again next time.